no one is coming to save you.
Oof. Wow.
Or,
Okay. That's a heavy opener. It it sounds a bit like the tagline for a post-apocalyptic horror movie, doesn't it?
it really does. It has that immediate kind of primal sense of abandonment, like you're a kid lost in a grocery store.
Totally.
But here's the twist in the source material we're covering today. Realizing that, truly deeply accepting that the cavalry isn't coming. It isn't meant to be depressing.
Oh, okay.
It's actually presented as the only path to absolute freedom.
Which sounds like a total paradox. Usually we associate freedom with safety, right? With having a safety net, not having the rope cut away.
Exactly. But today we are exploring why that safety net might actually be a trap. Welcome back to the deep dive.
And today we are definitely not doing the typical breathe in the light, breathe out the darkness self-help routine.
No, not at all. We are unpacking a video titled You Are Not a Victim by the content creator known as Thewizardliz. And I have to say, her style, it's not a gentle nudge, it's a full-on shove.
Yeah, for anyone who hasn't come across her content, she doesn't do that soft-spoken therapeutic voice. She's direct. She's so intense. And she brings this level of tough love that can be, jarring if you're not ready for it.
For sure. She operates with this fierce conviction that just demands you pay attention.
And she introduces this character right at the start of the video. We have to talk about Marcy.
Yes, Marcy.
Right.
Now, Marcy isn't a real person, but I think we've all met her. Or, more accurately, we've all been her at some point. Marcy is the metaphor for that voice in your head. The one that keeps you in bed till noon, scrolling, looking at other people's lives and just thinking, God, life is so unfair to me. Why them? Why is this happening to me?
It's the personification of the victim mindset. And the mission for this deep dive is to figure out how to, essentially evict Marcy from your head.
Right. We're going to look at the battle between that victim mindset and what Liz calls the creator mindset.
And we're going to get into the weeds of why, and this is the part that really stuck with me, why misery actually feels safer to the human brain than success.
That is a huge psychological concept to unpack.
It is. But before we get to the biology of misery, we have to start where she starts. And honestly, she grounds all this practical advice in a very almost metaphysical view of reality.
It gets a little trippy, fast.
Yeah.
She opens with this premise. Everything is imagination.
Which, on the surface might sound a bit like The Secret or standard manifestation talk.
Right.
But she breaks it down in a way that's surprisingly logical. It's less about magic and more about, the architecture of our world.
So she holds up a coffee mug, just a standard physical object, and she makes the point. This mug only exists in the physical world because it first existed in someone's mind.
Right. It was a thought before it was a thing. Someone had to visualize the handle, the shape, the function, all of it.
And she just extrapolates that out. Your job. That's just you living inside your boss's imagination. He imagined a company, he imagined a role, and now you're operating inside that construct.
Countries.
Physically, it's just land. The borders, the laws, the identities, that is all collective imagination.
Even money. It's just paper that we all collectively agree to imagine has value.
Exactly. If we stopped imagining it had value, it would just be colorful paper.
If you follow that logic all the way down, it does kind of dissolve the solidity of the world.
Yeah.
It implies we're living in this construct, almost like a game or a movie set.
It's the Matrix, but without the machines. It's just us.
Yeah.
And here's where it gets really interesting for our personal lives. Because usually we think of imagination as something we do alone. But Liz argues this applies to our relationships, too. She uses her sister as an example.
And she says, I don't actually know my sister. Which sounds so harsh at first. Like, what do you mean? You grew up with her.
But her point is, I only know the character of my sister that I have created in my reality.
And that's a pretty deep psychological insight, actually. You never truly access another person's consciousness. You just interact with your perception of them.
Right. Liz points out that if you ask her mother who the sister is, the mother describes a completely different person because the mother has written a different character in her reality.
Which leads to what I think is one of the most useful reframes in the whole video, the one about heartbreak.
Oh, the broken ego concept. Yeah, this is fascinating.
It is.
Liz says when a partner cheats or leaves or ghosts you and you feel that devastating pain in your chest, you aren't actually heartbroken.
You are ego broken.
Yes. And that's a crucial distinction, because what are you actually mourning?
You're mourning the script. You had a future imagined, we're going to buy the house, have the kids, grow old together. That was a story you wrote in your head.
You cast this person as the co-lead.
And then the actor walked off the set.
Exactly.
And your ego is screaming because the story it identified with just collapsed.
It's not necessarily about the reality of the person.
No, because often, as she points out, the person wasn't even treating you well anyway. The reality was bad, but the story was good. You're mourning the death of the fantasy.
It stings, but it's so empowering, because if reality is just imagination, if life is just a movie script,
Then you're the screenwriter. That's the core of the creator mindset.
you are.
If you're writing the script, you have the power to write people out. Liz is very literal about this. She says if you have a toxic friend or an abusive partner, you can just choose to remove them from your narrative.
So if you cut the attention, they just become background extras.
They cease to hold any narrative weight in your story.
Which brings us to the million-dollar question. If we have this power, if we can just write a new script, why don't we? Why is Marcy so loud?
Well, because, as Liz puts it, and this is backed up by a lot of behavioral psychology, being a victim feels safe.
Safe? How is being miserable safe? That seems so counterintuitive. I mean, nobody wants to be miserable.
It's not about happiness, it's about predictability.
Yeah.
She describes this concept of the circle. If you're in a victim mindset, your life is a closed loop. You wake up, feel bad, go to a job you hate, complain about it, go to sleep. It's miserable, absolutely. But, and this is the key, you know exactly what is going to happen next.
There are no surprises in the circle.
Precisely. The human brain is wired to avoid uncertainty. Evolutionarily, the unknown used to mean a tiger might eat you. So stepping outside the circle,
Even if it's towards success.
it triggers a fear response.
Right.
Success is actually terrifying because it's uncharted territory. Outside the circle is the unknown. It requires a leap of faith.
It requires guts.
A lot of guts. And Liz argues that most people would rather be comfortably miserable than terrified by the uncertainty of potential success. It's homeostasis. Your system wants to stay stable, even if that state is depression.
She brings up David Goggins here, which is the perfect example. And for anyone living under a rock, Goggins is the ultra-endurance athlete, former Navy SEAL, toughest man alive.
But he wasn't always that guy. Not even close. He was, 300 pounds, spraying for cockroaches, depressed.
Dealing with a really traumatic past, he was deep in that circle.
Deep in it. And Liz's take on this is just, it's brutally honest. She says, no one cared about David Goggins when he was in that state.
Right. If he had stayed in that room crying about his trauma, the world would have just kept spinning.
And that is the hard pill to swallow. She's talking to the Marcy in us that wants someone to come and witness our pain. We want the world to just stop and say, I see you, this is unfair.
But she says people might offer you a moment of pity. They might say, oh, that's so sad, but then
They'll go eat their lunch.
that line just cuts through everything.
It does. It's not that people are evil, it's that everyone is the main character in their own movie. They're busy trying to save themselves.
So if you just sit in your trauma or blame capitalism or your parents, you will simply be left behind.
You will be left behind. It sounds so cold, but I think she frames it as a necessary realization to trigger action. It's like realizing the fire department isn't coming, so you better grab the hose yourself.
Exactly. And there's a biological reason for this stuckness that she touches on, which I think is fascinating. It's not just cowardice, it's addiction.
You mean addiction to the drama itself?
Yes. This is a concept you hear a lot in trauma therapy. If you come from a chaotic background, an abusive household, or just a high-conflict home, your nervous system sets its baseline to high alert.
You're wired for the fight. You're flooded with cortisol and adrenaline.
So when things are calm,
Peace feels suspicious. It feels too quiet. It feels boring. Your body literally craves the chemical rush of those stress hormones.
so subconsciously you might pick a fight, you might date a toxic person.
You recreate the chaos because chaos feels like home. And that is a terrifying thought. You're literally engineering your own misery just to get that cortisol fix.
Liz urges you to recognize that you are the creator of that drama. You're not just unlucky with relationships. You are hiring actors to play the villain because that's the script you know how to write.
And you have to learn to sit in the boredom of peace. You have to detox from those stress hormones.
And that detox, that process, isn't a straight line. I loved her definition of growth here because it manages expectations so well.
What'd she say?
She says, growth is 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Yes. That is so vital When you learn something new, like listening to this deep dive and getting a new perspective, that's 2 steps forward. You have the insight. You feel great.
But then you have to apply it, and applying it feels weird. It feels uncomfortable.
It feels wrong. That's the 1 step back. You revert to old habits because the new neural pathway isn't solid yet. The brain resists it.
And the danger, she points out, is that people interpret that step back as failure. They think, oh, this doesn't work for me, so they quit.
And if you quit during the step back, you reset to 0. You have to push through that discomfort to actually integrate the change. You have to be okay with the step back being part of the dance.
Okay, so we've got the imagination part. We're the screenwriters. We've got the addiction to drama. Now let's talk about radical responsibility, because this is where Liz tends to ruffle some feathers.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
She does not believe in letting anyone off the hook. She talks about locus of control.
Meaning where you place the cause of what happens in your life, internal or external.
Exactly. People with an external locus of control believe things happen to them. The economy is bad. The news is sad.
Right.
Liz advocates for an extreme internal locus of control. She uses the news as an example. People say, oh, the news is so depressing. Her response is, don't blame the news. Blame your hands for picking up the phone.
Blame your eyes for reading it. You're the gatekeeper.
You are. But she takes this no excuses idea to some very controversial extremes to prove her point about resourcefulness.
Okay, I know exactly which ones you mean. First, the crackhead analogy.
Yes. And, big disclaimer here. She is obviously not endorsing drug use. But she points out a fascinating behavioral trait of addicts.
She says, look at a crackhead. They wake up with 0 money, no job, no support system, and yet
every single day, they find a way to get their fix.
Yeah.
They don't wake up and say, oh, the economy's down. I guess it won't get high today.
No. They hustle. They find a way, by any means necessary.
It's a dark example, but the principle is sound. They have a singular focus and relentless resourcefulness. And Liz asks you to imagine if you applied that same urgency to your business or your fitness.
If you pursued your goals with the same intensity that an addict pursues a fix, you'd be unstoppable.
That's the argument. It strips away the excuse of, I don't have the resources. She's saying, no, you don't have the hunger.
The second example is just as intense, the documentary about a transgender man in Thailand.
Right. This person was living in poverty, earning very low wages. But he saved for 4 years, penny by penny, to afford top surgery.
And this wasn't some luxury medical experience.
Not at all. It was a back alley situation, a terrible doctor, no anesthesia. The patient was awake while being cut open.
It's horrific.
It sounds horrific. But Liz's point isn't about the surgery. It's about the hierarchy of values. This person risked everything and endured immense physical pain because his desire to align his body with his identity was stronger than his fear.
The point being, people who truly deeply want something don't complain about pretty privilege or society stopping them. They find a way, even if it hurts.
Which brings us to the inevitable pushback. I know some people listening are thinking, well, that's easy for an influencer to say, check your privilege.
And she totally anticipates that comment.
She shuts it down immediately. She shares her own background, immigrant, abusive childhood, started with nothing. She compares the complaints of modern Westerners to her mother,
who had to flee a war. She almost took a bullet to the head.
Had to start over in a new country cleaning toilets to survive. Liz's perspective is that immigrant mindset. There is no safety net, so you don't look for one, you just work.
She argues that if you have a smartphone and an internet connection, you have access to more opportunity than kings had 100 years ago.
So sitting on a high horse and complaining about capitalism while tweeting from an iPhone is, in her view, the ultimate sign of privilege. Complaining about the rules doesn't help you win the game.
Speaking of how we operate, let's pivot to the mental tools she offers. I love the yellow car theory.
Right. This is a great demonstration of the reticular activating system, or the RAS, in your brain.
So how does that work?
Well, your brain is bombarded with millions of bits of data every second. It can't process it all, so the RAS is the filter.
Right.
It lets in only what you've told it is important.
So if I tell you to look for yellow cars,
your RAS marks yellow car as important. You'll suddenly see them everywhere. They were always there, but you were filtering them out.
And this applies to the victim mindset because
if you wake up looking for lack, if your internal dialogue is, I have no money, I have no friends, your RAS will scan your world to find evidence that confirms that belief.
You will see lack everywhere. You'll literally miss opportunities right in front of you because your brain filters them out as irrelevant.
Right, so gratitude isn't just some spiritual fluff. It's a mechanism to retune your brain's search engine. Liz says you cannot attract abundance if you are vibrating with lack.
You have to train your brain to see the yellow cars, the opportunities that are already there.
And to do that, you have to be present. She gets a little philosophical again about the concept of now.
It's a classic Stoic idea, really. The past is just a memory. It doesn't physically exist anymore. The future is imagination. It hasn't happened.
The only thing that is real, the only resource you could actually use is now.
So dwelling on how your parents treated you 10 years ago is literally investing your energy into a ghost.
And worrying about failing in 5 years is investing in a fantasy. Both rob you of the ability to act in the present.
She gets vulnerable here too, which I appreciated. She admits she sabotages herself. She realized she was constantly overgiving, leaving herself depleted.
And this is a crucial connection. She didn't just stop at, "I do too much." She looked for the root. And she realized it stemmed from her childhood, feeling the need to protect and care for her mother.
That's the aha moment. The pattern was a survival strategy from childhood. If I save mom, then I'm safe.
Right. But she's an adult now. That strategy is obsolete.
Yeah.
And once you identify why you were doing something, "I'm doing this because little kid me thought I had to," you can break the script.
This seeds perfectly into her closing metaphor, the empty cup.
This is her defense of selfishness. And it's a strong one. We are so often taught that putting ourselves first is bad.
Especially women.
Especially women. Liz turns that on its head. She argues that if you are broken, if your cup is empty, you have nothing of value to give anyone.
You can't be a good employee, a good partner, or a good daughter if you are resentful and exhausted. That depletion just spills over.
So being selfish enough to heal yourself and prioritize your needs is actually the most selfless thing you can do for the people around you.
Because then they get the best version of you, not the martyr version.
Exactly. You are doing the collective a favor by fixing the individual.
I love that reframe. Okay, so let's recap. We have covered a lot of ground today.
We have. We've established that reality is a construct of imagination that you can rewrite. We've looked at why victimhood is a comfortable, predictable, biological trap.
We've learned that no one cares about your struggles until you overcome them, so you might as well stop waiting for an audience.
And we've discussed how you have the radical power to change your life right now just by changing what you look for, the yellow cars. And remember, the tone here was not gentle. It was meant to be a splash of ice-cold water.
A very cold splash, but sometimes that's what wakes you up from a nightmare.
Agreed.
So we always like to leave you with a thought to chew on, something that takes this source material one step further.
Right. We started with the terrifying idea that no one is coming to save you. And we've discussed how the audience of your life, the people you worry are judging you, are actually just looking at their own phones.
They aren't watching you.
Not at all. So here's the question. If you disappeared today, the world would keep moving. The sun would come up. The news would cycle. Since no one is coming to save you and the audience is empty, what are you waiting for?
Why are you still reading from a script you hate when you're the one holding the pen?
Start writing your own movie.
Thanks for diving in with us.
See you next time.